Yeah. Yeah, it's good.
Wow.
It's good. Walmart. Yeah, South Bend. California.
Tonight at 5, another child in Philadelphia becomes the victim of gun violence, this time a 13-year-old boy. Police say he was just sitting inside of a car with other young people when a group of juveniles walked up and just started shooting. Good evening, I'm Dawn Timoney. Our Marcus Espinoza joining us now from police headquarters. Marcus, what can you tell us?
Well, I can tell you it's disturbing, and neighbors there are in shock over what happened, that a 13-year-old boy on the way to school never made it there because he was gunned down in the street, and neighbors once again at a loss over this gun violence.
It was like boop, 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 you know?
Everyone, I'm Yuki Washington.
I'm Jessica Cartalia. Sadly, we begin our newscast tonight with 2 more children being shot.
A 14-year-old boy is fighting for his life. The shooting happened just before 8 o'clock tonight in the 1100 block of North Street in the Oxford Circle section of the city. Matt Petrillo is standing by with more details tonight. Matt?
Yuki and Jess, police tell us 2 gunmen were seen walking down this driveway and firing several shots at that black car with 2 teenagers inside. Both of them were struck. One is now in critical condition, all of it startling neighbors.
Jackie, I can tell you at least 32 bullets fired on this residential street behind me, and likely more shell casings out there. I'm going to step out of the way so you can take a look at this crime scene. Crime scene investigators have been out here for the better part of the hour, going over this whole block, marking evidence on the ground, bullets in nearby houses, and possibly more in the brush area across the street. And police say this 15-year-old boy who was killed may have been targeted.
We thought it was firecrackers, and my husband said no. They're gunshots.
This neighbor didn't want to show her face on camera, but she recalls the moment just before 8 tonight she saw the familiar boy lying on the sidewalk, bleeding out.
So we ran up, and he was laying there, and I seen him still breathing. So I told my husband to call 911.
But in less than an hour, the teenager was dead.
He was shot multiple times. He was shot in the head, the neck, the chest, the torso, and arm.
At least 32 bullet casings were found on Sydenham Road tonight. No guns recovered. But
okay, let's get out to Shawnette now on this shooting where an 11-year-old has been killed tonight. What can you tell us about this, Shawnette?
So, Shayna, Commissioner Outlaw says that the kids were out here riding a bike up and down the block behind me when someone came out on foot and fired shots. At this hour, they still don't know why, but they are searching, of course, for evidence as they continue to search for whoever did this. So let's take a closer look at the scene here. It's some video that we were able to get moments ago. Police say the call came in around 6:30 this evening about shots fired. They got to the 1500 block of McKinley Street in Oxford Circle and found an 11-year-old boy, as Shayna mentioned, shot in the neck. He was initially listed in critical condition, they say, when officers took him to the hospital, but he has since died. The 14-year-old he was on the bike with was shot in the arm and leg. That 14-year-old boy is in stable condition, we're told right now. Commissioner Outlaw was on scene and says the boy...
Yeah, Jim, I was about 2 miles away from that shooting scene that you just showed. I was with Governor Tom Wolf and other Democratic lawmakers talking about gun violence at the very time when that shooting happened. It underscores the urgency of all of this and what could happen in neighborhoods like this one and others across the city if they and others are not successful in doing something to stop it.
It's morning in Mantua around 11 a.m. when this neighborhood becomes a crime scene again. You can see a gold vehicle pull up.
Multiple males exited that vehicle, immediately began firing upon the group.
4 men were shot in their 20s and 30s.
A significant number of fired shell casings on the highway, clearly indicating that there was little or no concern for life in the neighborhood.
The 3800 block of Aspen was the scene of a deadly shooting just hours before.
It don't make no sense. They was just shooting down here last night. We're living in some very dark times here.
Neighbors are fed up.
The mayor going to have to step up. If something has to be done, we need help. Prayer is not getting it. We done did all of that. It's getting worse. The kids can't come out and play. We're scared to go to the store. You know, you can't sit on your porch. And we never lived like this.
I can't sleep. I can't eat because my grandson will never come home again. And I lost my heart. That was my baby.
The morning of Christmas Eve, the woman you heard from there got the call that no one wants to get her 20-year-old grandson, Daewoo Scruggs. had been gunned down while waiting for his bus to get to work. The shooter chased him down, firing at least 15 shots in his direction. The entire thing was caught on video. Police now say 16-year-old Amin Hurst was the one who pulled the trigger on that aspiring comedian. On March 20th, Hurst was arrested and charged in that murder. But in between Scruggs' murder and those charges, there was another shooting. That time, 4 people were shot in a car. 2 of them died. Last week, Hurst was charged with those murders, and while he was behind bars, police took a closer look at a gun connected to him. That's when they discovered that gun was connected to another unsolved murder that we told you about as breaking news right after it happened in March. A 20-year-old man who'd just been released from jail was gunned down on the grounds of the Curran Fromhold Correctional Facility. Police say it appears as though that man was the tragic victim of mistaken identity. Now, Hurst, he may be a teenager, but it certainly did take some time for the authorities to track him down. The fugitive team, as well as the U.S. Marshals, they were searching for him. They say he was aware that they were looking for him, and he was going from place to place. He is now in custody and facing charges as an adult. Reporting live this morning outside of police headquarters, I'm Pam.
Year-old is wanted tonight in the shooting death of a 79-year-old grandfather. The victim was gunned down while driving. Eyewitness News reporter Alicia Reed is live in Trainer with the very latest on this investigation. Alicia?
Neighbors tell me children were playing in the park behind me when that car spun out of control and came crashing. Thankfully, no one else was hurt. The hunt is on to find 14-year-old Zafir Tinsley Jones. Police say he is the person responsible for shooting Robert Womack. The victim was driving with his 18-year-old grandson and another teenager when Tinsley Jones allegedly shot him in the head Wednesday evening.
My husband ran over to see if the driver or anybody in the car needed help.
Neither teen was hurt. The senior citizen drove less than half a mile before losing control, hitting 3 cars, then crashing into a mound of dirt.
Jim, take a look. You can still see the tire marks out here in the middle of Broad Street. Look, everybody knows Broad is one of the main arteries that runs through Philadelphia, but somehow Saturday into Sunday overnight, these drivers were allowed to block off the intersection, do donuts, do drifting, and students tell me it was entertaining until it wasn't when somebody opened fire. They call it drifting. Some know it as doing donuts. Early Sunday morning, it was the entertainment right in the middle of Broad and Oxford Streets by Temple University's campus. Many students were in the crowd, including junior Daniel Capelli, who took this video.
Everyone was having a good time. It was pretty peaceful. I mean, obviously the cars doing donuts, that was it. And then all of a sudden, kind of a commotion. It all happened so quick.
Gunfire came from this car, possibly trying to get through the crowd. The video has been posted and shared to open social media accounts, and Philadelphia police are investigating.
So the other day, I got sent a video clip of Ben X, who's a member of the Nation of Islam. He has a YouTube channel. I've seen his content before. I've watched a couple clips. He likes to upload a number of clips of Minister Farrakhan. And the brother that sent me the clip asked me, do I think that organizations like the Nation of Islam could be effective in dealing with, the explosion of inner city violence that we're seeing, now, which has multiple factors to it, including COVID and the pandemic and all that, and social media. And if not, why? And his message had, a number of things in it, talking about, organizations like the NFAC, organizations like, the one in the Detroit 300, right? And every once in a while, I'll get people who will bring up these organizations. And I've already made a video on the Nation of Islam. And I'll give the Nation of Islam, its due in terms of what it has contributed to the benefit of black people. That I cannot take away from the Nation of Islam. So that much respect has to be given to the Nation of Islam. But it has to be recognized that we are dealing with different times. And it's just like how all that, we're going to go and march. How effective marching is the response of the powerless. Okay, marching is not an effective tool like it was back in the the 50s and the 60s. And I'm saying that as somebody who's of the new generation. And I'm gonna get into this whole aspect of the new generation because to me it's like the Nation of Islam has an old model and it doesn't realize that it's dealing with new niggas. I mean, completely new niggas. They may not like that word, but it is what it is. That's what they're dealing with. Now, you know me, I don't particularly care for these Abrahamic religions. I don't care for the white Jesus is going to save us. I don't care for the Allah is going to save us. I don't care for the Most High is going to save us. I don't care for the looking out your third eye is going to save us. I don't care for the black Israelite, we're the real Jews is going to save us. I don't care about any of that stuff. Black people need to stop being magical and get practical and pragmatic. And I'm not saying that there aren't aspects of the Nation of Islam where they can be practical and pragmatic, but because, they are who they are, they're going to throw their infusion and injection of, Islam and God and all that other stuff, despite the fact that we already know group economics and Arabs don't fuck with us. Okay. But, there's a couple reasons why I don't think that the Nation of Islam is, effective today or will be as effective as it once was. There's a number of reasons. First one, back in the day, back in like the 60s, right? Because Nation of Islam, I think was it the Fruits of Islam was founded in Detroit, or was it the Nation of Islam that was founded in Detroit? Anyway, and there's a difference. Fruits of Islam, for those of you who don't know, they're the enforcement arm of the Nation of Islam. And I'm going to touch on the Fruits of Islam. They're the enforcement arm of the Nation of Islam. Back in the 80s, about like 1988, they were doing security. They were, basically policing a number of projects around the country, because in the 80s, you had the whole crack era. You had that whole New Jack City type era, with Nino Brown thing going on. And then shortly after that came the 1994 crime bill. And then a whole bunch of brothers were getting slapped with RICO charges. One of the big differences is that back then you had organized crime in the black community. That was, really organized. They could go, Nation of Islam could go into any neighborhood and basically, and they still had a reputation, and they could say, I'm going to talk to the leaders. I'm going to talk to the leader of the Bloods. I'm going to talk to the leader of the Crips. I remember they had like a somewhat of a truce in LA when they had the whole Rodney King, Rodney King beating, and then the riots followed and all that stuff. And, they came down and tried to, get the gangs to like resolve their issues, if I'm not mistaken. But that's what the Nation of Islam did, back then. But that doesn't exist today. You got it's everybody's like a free agent. You got little factions it's like the little rascals running around. You got 14-year-olds catching bodies. You know what I'm saying? You got 14-year-olds out here catching bodies before they caught a body, if you know what I mean. Meaning the 14-year-old is catching a body and he's a virgin. You got virgins out here catching bodies. You know what I mean? Like, how do you have the same conversation with a child that you have with an adult? Especially if you got a whole bunch of them. You got a whole bunch of Peter Pan lost boys out here, which, again, the other issue is the fact they got a lot of firepower. Okay, you got these young men out here. They don't care who they hit. Grandma can get it. Little kids can get it. Grandpa can get it. Mama can get it. Daddy can get it. Babies can get it. You got young boys out here talking about demon time. You know what I mean? I mean, listen to the drill music. They don't give a fuck. So if the Fruits of Islam think they're going to go stand out there with their white Mickey Mouse gloves and stand in a single file line, I'm like, that's target practice. These young boys, it's a whole different energy. Anybody can get it. They don't have the respect and deference. You're talking about a population that is, 3, 4, 5, 6 generations of single parented homes. You're talking about everything downstream from the crack era. You know what I'm saying? Like there was not a lot of correction that was even made then. So you talking about boys that have been raised in multiple generations of dysfunction. The whole idea, the whole orientation that can be given to these boys, especially without there being economic opportunities. I don't know where that's going to go. Amos Wilson already warned about that. He was like, it's not just about going out there and telling boys what not to do and not to do this and not to do that and you should do the right thing. If at the end of the day, they're still jobless and unemployed, you're giving them manhood training programs in a vacuum. In a vacuum. Last time I checked, Nation of Islam is not in the business of industries or creating or manufacturing anything. They're in the business of recruiting people to their organization. And, they may do some security work here and there, from time to time. And, from what I'm seeing, the security work that they, once did is the security work that they do now is much less than what they once did. These young boys out here got way too much firepower. And I'm saying it as somebody who's pro Second Amendment, but they got way too much firepower. And they don't have a deference for the Nation of Islam like that. Like these young boys don't know history like that. They don't know who you are. The funny nigga with the bow tie. The other thing is that, because y'all know I'm from Philadelphia and, I've rubbed shoulders with, Philadelphia has the highest percentage of black Muslims. And I've rubbed shoulders with members of the Nation of Islam. And what I notice, number one, a lot of them are old. That's the first part. They're too old to be out here to really challenge and compete with these, again, 14-year-olds that'll blow you away, spray the whole block down. For further evidence, I can throw in the clips to show you that anybody can get it. Okay. And a lot of the older cats, they kind of have this, I was this, that, and the third back in, the late 70s and early 80s. And these young boys don't give a fuck. It's 2021. It's not, 1978. They don't care who you were. You're so far removed from even like if the names that may come up to them would be something like, Big Meech or Rick Ross and shit like that. And that's only because they're in songs. But to go back even further than that, they don't know who you are. You know what I'm saying? When music was, the Sugar Hill Gang and shit, they don't know who you are. And again, another thing is a lot of the older cats that were in, the Nation of Islam, the ones that I have met, they have felonies. You know what I mean? before they got involved in the Nation of Islam, they went to prison, converted to Islam, and became a member of the Nation of Islam, just like Malcolm X did. A lot of them have felonies. And the thing is that today, like when you see a lot of, even whether it's the Fruits of Islam or whether it's the members of the Nation of Islam, a lot of those are descendants of people who were originally part of the Nation of Islam. Not saying that they still not recruiting, but they're not recruiting like they once were. And I'm like, so in other words, you got a lot of members of the Nation of Islam and the Fruits of Islam that, quiet as is kept, are educated lames. They don't know anything about the streets. They ain't been in the streets. You know what I'm saying? Go look at that big ass mansion that Minister Farrakhan is living in, in Chicago. You know what I'm saying? Mustafa don't know the streets like that. He's lived a life of privilege. You see, so I'm like, you gonna put some of these guys that ain't, on some savage shit, that aren't on demon time, you gonna put them up against, street dudes that, don't care. They don't give a fuck. Like they're just completely disconnected from principles and ideas of morality and whatnot. They're in survival mode. As I've said before, survival does not wait for assimilation. So I'm like, I don't know how that's going to work. I don't know how they're going to confront, those individuals. So we got no economic opportunities. The Nation of Islam isn't going to come with economic opportunities. And then on top of that, the firepower. I mean, the fact that we've had so many other organizations pop up or people speaking on it, and we hear from Farrakhan from time to time, but I'm saying I don't even know who's the next person in line. Who's the torchbearer? Who's the next person? Is it Ben X? Who is it? Who's the next person in line that the torch is being passed on? And we talked about this before about old niggas not passing on torches. You know what I mean? Farrakhan is like, what, 90 years old? How old is Farrakhan? He's up in age. Farrakhan at minimally got another less than 10 years in him before you're going to see a post and it's going to be on the Shade Room and they'll be like, Minister Farrakhan has transitioned. That's what people are going to say. Who's the next person that's going to be speaking on shit? I mean, in that little window of time, even with all the bullshit surrounding him, I'm saying Grandmaster Jay, he, was out here being extremely visible, doing things, motivate, people to, embrace the Second Amendment. I ain't seen, Fruits of Islam out there with, AR-15s wrapped around their neck, ready to go. It's go time. They still on the same old model. And some people will argue, that that's not how they move, and they do have guns, but you ain't going to see them. I get that, but there becomes a point of, show of force and stuff like that. And when you're dealing with inner city violence and you're dealing with these young boys and you're dealing with, no real leaders to speak of. It's not like you can go up in these blocks and say, hey, take me to your leader and then talk to them and negotiate the terms of some shit. It's not going to work like that. And nobody wants to purge, that's off the table because no, these are our youth. And if we just talk to them and these young boys don't give a shit. You gotta come with money first and say, hey, I can put you on, you can eat, you can be comfortable, and then come with the other stuff. But nobody wants to come with that. Everybody who comes to the table keeps wanting to come with, if we just lecture them, if we give them a speech, if they pick up this holy book, all will be revealed. It's like, for real. These young boys out here will kill you. I just don't know what people don't understand about that. They do not care. I mean, they got extendos, I had a trip down in Florida and, one of the dudes that I know down there, he's a street dude And he was, he was putting me on game. And he was just like, yeah, he was like, yo, they move different down here. And I was like, what you mean they move different down here? Because he's originally from up top. He's like, they move different down here, man. I was like, okay. He was like, okay, like see that boy right there? Like we were in his whip. I'm in the passenger seat. He's showing me around the town and everything else. Like he's like, see the boy right there? I was like, yeah. With the backwards back on, I was like, what's that? Like some crisscross shit? Like the jump, right? Like that's what I'm thinking of when I see people wearing shit backwards, hoodies backwards, hats backwards, and he had his backpack on backwards. When I mean backwards, like his backpack, the one you can sling two arms through, was on his chest. Right? And I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, so like, I mean, I guess that's just their style. He was like, nah. He's like, that backpack ain't empty. He was like, nah, that nigga got a Draco in that shit. I'm like, he got a Draco in the backpack? And then go online, go on YouTube right now, pause the video, and type in walking through the mall with a Draco. Walking through the supermarket, Walmart with a Draco. These guys are walking around with damn Dracos and shit. Like, I'm like, oh man. Like, again, the firepower. And this goes back to that whole scene in, what was that shit with the bus ride, with the, Straight Outta Compton. What's the dude's name? OG Two-Tone or whatever it was. What was the name? That wasn't OG Two-Tone. What was it? It was something Two-Tone. But anyway, that whole bus scene, and I've talked about it extensively with Cap about, he was like guns and muscle. He's like the shit that goes on now. He's like, it wouldn't have gone in the back of the day because like back in the day, if somebody, let's say a guy was beating up on his wife, what I mean, the women didn't have to call the cops. They would say, you keep acting up or you keep doing this, I'm gonna call the Panthers on you, or I'm gonna call the Nation of Islam on you, and most dudes would straighten up. But now, you know what I mean? Like you try to run up on some of these young boys. Please, man. They will spray you down. So, I mean, I don't know what else there is. I don't know what else there is to say about the whole situation. You're dealing with underdeveloped minds. You're not dealing with adult people that are closer to the age of the people that you're trying to get to that actually have any control over them. I remember watching that what was it, a video with Vlad with Freeway Rick Ross. He said the shit in there. He was like, nah, it's like niggas is like freelance and shit. With the Mexican mafia and all that stuff, they have a top-down structure. They got shot callers. If they tell you that you got to go kill somebody, you got to go kill somebody. And if you don't, then you get taken out. That doesn't exist like that in the black community. I mean, again, go off and listen to the drill music. Talking about demon time. Anybody can get it. So I just don't know how effective the nation would be. And, for those that want to go and point to the Nation of Islam because that's their enforcement arm, I don't know how effective they would be. That's cool that they can, stand around Beyonce at a concert or something like that and try to look intimidated. These young boys are not intimidated by the Nation of Islam. Not when they got extendos and, pull up with a stick. Pull it with a stick. Like, no, I'm sorry. It doesn't compute to me. They got 50 round drums, all that. Like, it ain't the goddamn 60s. And they think they can get away with it. Chop you down, get away with it. Now, whatever happens in prison, since there's a large Muslim population in prison, that's a different story. Maybe things will be different, and the nation has way more pull, in prison, but outside the prison, it reminds me of that scene in The Bronx Tale. Your guy is bigger than my guy up there, but my guy is bigger than your guy down here. And in my mind, the same rules apply. I'm like, whatever influence the Nation of Islam has, it ain't on the young boys. Because the young boys, to me, they're lost boys. Like there's a severed connection between the even the fathers of these boys. If the fathers of these boys aren't around and the boys don't respect the fathers, you talking to the father thinking that you can straighten him out and that he can straighten his son out, like that connection is broken. So you're going to have to figure out how to get to the boys some other way. Do I know the answer to that? No. But, again, I'm more of like, I have like a more of a balanced approach, and it heavily leans towards the whole aspect of economic opportunities and starting that as early as possible with, future generations. But at some point, like some of these folks is going to have to, you got to purge. You got to purge. And I noticed that Nation of Islam ran into the same problem in 1988 when they were trying to police the community, as what we talked about earlier, with this whole, having your hands tied behind your back, because the Nation of Islam got hit with the Defamation League, and they were getting all type of accused of, that they were engaging in sexism because of the roles that they wanted women to play. I mean, it was just all type of bullshit. It was all type of woke culture, even back then, that was trying to, because the government doesn't care for the Nation Islam, and I think the Southern Law Poverty Center, whatever the hell it's called, considers them some sort of racial terrorist organization or some crap like that. You know what I mean? Which we know that they're not. But that's how so the government tries to come up with all type of, ways, to discredit, the Nation of Islam. So, they got to move, in a particular way. Again, hands tied. But it's almost the same as what I say about, law abiding, card carrying, CCW, legal gun owners versus Ray Ray and Pookie. So when there's a magazine ban and they say, oh, you can only have whatever, 10, 15 rounds in your gun or whatever, like that restricts the law abiding person, but it doesn't restrict the criminal. And so when you got to follow the rules in order to try to clean up and fix the situation, but the person that you're dealing with doesn't follow the rules, you're not going to be able to follow the rules in order to, get to the goal that you're trying to get to. You got to come up with some other sophisticated way. It's kind of like how they got Al Capone. They didn't get Al Capone on murder. They didn't get Al Capone on racketeering. They didn't get Al Capone on money laundering. They got Al Capone on what? Tax evasion. You see, so you got to come up. But that's the federal government. But when you're trying to clean up your own community, and then everything that you would do in the community, because some people are going to have to be hit over the head. That's just the reality of it. Like you're not going to go out here and police the community and not crack some eggs. That's impossible. But again, like how many people are really willing to do that? Like even with the members of the Nation of Islam, again, the older generation, a lot of them guys were felons. They didn't care. They already had a felony. They didn't care about getting dirty. But the newer generation, these guys that, they're more religious than anything. And they got wives and they got family. They ain't about to sacrifice what they got going on with the family or the house that they're living in and every whatever they're engaged in, however they're making their money or making a living, they're being the patriarch of their family. They're not about to go out here and start cracking some eggs and then get caught up and jammed up, which again, the white man system is eagerly waiting to do, and charge them with whatever, murder, or charge them with, assault and battery or something else like that, putting hands on somebody. Because I'm going to be the first one to tell you that some of these young boys, they need an ass whooping. You know what I mean? They need an ass whooping. But since they out here shooting first. I don't even know how you can get to the ass whooping without shooting back. You know, yeah, sure. There will be some young men that will be moved by words, and they will be moved by, all of the feel goodery of talking about being black and being woke and we was kangs and original man status and God said this about us and that. Yeah, there'll be some people that are moved by that. But what you gonna do with the savages that are out here? Who you like, again, it's like a rabid dog. Like, it's not the dog's fault that the dog became rabid because somebody let it out the yard. You know what I mean? So now you got this rabid dog that you really can't, like, the dog is so diseased that you really can't, communicate with it. You can't get it to see the light. What do you do with that dog? Because that's how I end up looking at a lot of these young boys in the community. Like, what do you do with the rabid dogs? Do you put them down? Who puts them down? You know what I mean? Do you just start locking them up? That's the same thing, the system of white supremacy. Just lock these niggas up, right? Yeah, we fucked them up, and now we're going to lock them up, right? We fucked them up with our system, and now we're going to lock them up and say, oh, see, they're just like that. It's their culture. It's in their DNA. You know what I mean? But at the same time, when you got a community of men that are trying to, have a safe neighborhood and they got kids to raise and everything else, it's like you got to put that on a scale. Is it more important that you raise your kids in a safe environment? Or is it more important that, you don't do to these young black men what white supremacy would do to them? You see? It's a very fucked up situation to be in. But trying to think, I don't really have much more else to say about this. It's a different day and age. You got lack of economic opportunities. You got these young boys that are, 4 or 5 generations in, single motherhood, fatherless homes. So the dysfunction is rampant. They can't even look to their grandparents, for guidance. You know what I mean? Like I'm entering that phase. Like I'm entering the phase of, some of the people that I went to school originally with, if they had a kid early enough, they're becoming grandparents now. You know what I'm saying? So like we've already seen this. You start, again, Jim Jones, freaking Cameron, come home with me. Come home with me. Where grandmothers is 30. Like that's some real shit. Yeah, where grandmothers are 30, meaning she had a kid at 15. Then, when she becomes 30, her daughter has a kid at 15. You know what I'm saying? You got people that are in, just multiple generations like that because, it could be 4, 5, 6 generations only spanning past, the last, 30, 40 years or something like that. And you're like, how is that possible? It's like 15, and 50. Like you come from a whole line of people that kids having kids. Yes. Living in poverty generationally. That is what you're dealing with. You're not dealing with, what Minister Farrakhan was dealing with, back in like the 60s and shit like that, where you had, black people who at the very least either had grandparents that had it together or had parents that had it together. Like when you're only dealing with one generation of dysfunction, you can at least talk to somebody and be like, yo, what happened? Oh, I got hooked on drugs and everything. Well, what type of home did you come from? Oh, my father was there. He worked at Ford. And my mother, she was a seamstress or some shit like that. He said, oh, okay. Or she was a school teacher. You say, oh, okay. So you the one that fucked up. Okay, well, we're going to try to get you back on track. But they have some sort of semblance of what on track even looks like. These new generation doesn't have a semblance of that. It's like even me. I've never seen an all black controlled business district that has a main street. I've never seen that. Cap can tell you about that. I've never seen that. You know what I'm saying? I've never seen a street where on both sides of the street there's a black pharmacy there, there's a black barbershop there, there's a black tailor there, there's a black laundromat there, there's a black restaurant there. Like, I've never seen that. There's a tax office there. There's a black bank at the corner. Like, what? That never existed. You know what I'm saying? And see, the problem with a lot of the older generation is they don't understand what it's like to come up in a world where some shit never existed. I mean, again, we could talk about Bastards of the Party and all that. You can go watch the documentary with Bones and all that. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that was pointed out in that documentary. The children that came up after the civil rights movement. So after, let's say, Martin Luther King's assassination, coming up in the 70s, and those are the people that became the gangsters in the early 90s. You know what I mean? Like, when you look at the ages, of a lot of these rappers, you know what I mean? These guys were born in like 1968, 1971. You know what I'm saying? Like, hold on. Let me pull this shit up. I'm gonna pull it up right now. Let's go with Snoop Dogg. How old is Snoop Dogg? Let's see. Snoop Dogg age. Snoop Dogg Snoop Dogg is 50 years old. He was born in 1971. Bastards of the Party. So what would that be? In 1990, he was what? 19 years old? You see what I'm saying? Who else is on there? Dr. Dre is 56 years old. Ice Cube, 52 years old. Again, Bastards of the Party. And, that's, you're talking about the era when, all these groups were under attack. Nation of Islam was under attack. The Black Panthers were under attack. Trumped up charges. Richard Aoki, giving the Black Panthers firearms, which the, FBI gave them. Fred Hampton's assassination. You know what I mean? So, again, all the, where black people were progressing at that time, all of that was basically eradicated. And now, what you see, because that was so crazy, is Snoop Dogg, technically speaking, would be the grandparent. No, would he be the grandparent of what you see? How old is his? I don't know how old Snoop Dogg's daughter is. I don't know if maybe he's not old enough to be a grandparent, but maybe if he had a child, very, very early. I think he's got an older son. But I'm saying, nah, he might be a little bit too young. So I'm thinking the people, you talking about people like in their 60s. That you're looking at their grandkids. Yeah, probably I'd say about 60s. You're looking at their grandkids. You know what I'm saying? Because if I had a kid, if I had a kid early, you know what I mean? Or like when I see these ages of like, 14, 15, 16, I'm like, damn, like if I had a child, like that's pretty much how old they would be. You know what I mean? So like, I'm like, that's my generation. You see? So maybe Snoop Dogg and Dr. Dre and all them, that's not their generation. You got to add another 10 years to that. You know what I mean? But the original people, some of the original, people that you saw during like the civil rights movement and everything, those people are in their 80s and in their 90s, like Minister Farrakhan. So people are trying to ride the coattails of legacies of the actions of people that came before them and say, oh, we're the same people, it's the same organization. And that's not the case. Just like with the NRA, like today's NRA is not the NRA of the past. They had that whole coup in the 70s and a restructuring and whatnot. It's a different NRA. And the NRA is like the one that exists now with Wayne LaPierre is damn near dead. People going over to Guns of America and everything else. So people hold on to the name. It's just like Smith and Wesson. Like Smith and Wesson not Smith and Wesson, Springfield Armory. Like that name was like bought and sold and bought and exchanged and sold. Like it doesn't mean it's the same thing. Now, again, with the Nation of Islam, some of the key people are still there, but a lot of those older people, especially with the fact that with black men, shit, we don't even live that long. You know what I'm saying? Most niggas just they we got prostate cancer, got colon cancer, if they're smoking, COPD, emphysema, cardiovascular disease, coronary artery disease, diabetic kidneys, diabetic nephropathy, I mean just all type of shit. But those are the biggies. I don't see too many black men having cirrhosis of the liver. But yeah, kidney shot, prostate cancer, cardiovascular disease, and some pulmonary condition if they smoked. But if they engage in any of that, those guys are gone. They're gone. All of my grandfather's friends, all of them are dead. All of them are dead. You know what I mean? And they came up in the height of the civil rights movement. So, you got to look at the fact that we're dealing with different generations. It's new niggas on all sides. It's on all sides. You're not dealing with the same people. I know they want to, try to grab that sort of clout, but I can say for certain that these young boys are on some completely different shit. It is not 1992. They're on some completely different shit. On top of the fact that a lot of them got money. I was watching some interview with Method Man at the barbershop, and he was like, where are these young boys getting all this money? Yeah, social media, TikTok, Instagram, just the way, putting music on SoundCloud. You know what I'm saying? There's all different type of ways to get money. The drill music, it's the rap game, that whole going to all these labels and shit like that. Like, there's all different type of ways that they make their money. So, they don't care about, and then once, like, the thing is, like, once they go down that path, like, they don't care about what you got to say about some shit. Nigga, we over here getting money. That's how they look at the shit. You old, you dusty, y'all niggas did some shit the other way. It goes back to that, what was that song that, they're responding to J. Cole, that YBM, what's the boy's name? I can't think of what it is, but some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Let me see this shit. What was that song called? J. Cole. It was a diss track. J. Cole, 1985. It was the response to 1985. What was it called? I can't think of what the video was called. Yeah, Old Niggas. That's what it was called. It was the response to J. Cole. Go listen to that song. Like, the younger generation does not have any respect for the older generation like that. As far as they're concerned, you failed. You failed them. Like, they don't get anything from you. They don't eat off of you. This is the whole issue with the whole, lack of economic. I don't know, like this is the part that kind of irritates me. It's like where, as a regular black man, right, I end up wearing like the scarlet letter of the black men that came before me, right? And I'm being asked and challenged, well, what are you doing? We got all this violence in the community. What are you doing about that, right? And I said the same thing about these HBCU black fraternities that like to, do the same thing as Nation of Islam and puff their chest out like they're out here doing big things. What is it? Alpha Phi Alpha Phi Alpha and the Kappas and the Qs, and the Sigmas and all that other stuff. And I'm like, what are y'all doing? Like nobody out here, no black men, I don't care what your organization is, no black men out here are doing big things in the community and turning this shit around at the collective level. First off, I think that all these organizations, if anything, all they do is fracture us, but people are going to be on what they're on. I would prefer if we operated it as a monolith. I don't know why black people got to break into factions. Same problem with Africa. I told you. Too diverse, too many different languages and cultures and shit like that. Meanwhile, white people took over Africa because they just put all their shit underneath the umbrella of whiteness. Where black people, they're like, oh, you don't worship the God, the Abrahamic God that I worship that isn't even indigenous to the continent of Africa. It came from outside of Africa. Like that's us. So, to me, all black men bear that criticism about what hasn't been done or the failures of the community and whatnot. We can talk about the retardedness of the women and whatnot, but I'm saying, for those especially that came before us, like the shit wasn't responded to. Like even when I talk about the gender war stuff that I brought up, that I was talking about, I was going to speak on before this little interjection here. Even when it comes to that, you know what I mean? Like, I'm dealing with the tail end of the shit. These women think the way that they think because of, shit not being done or responded to when it should have been responded to back in the day. And I don't know whether the internet makes the situation better or worse. I mean, there is the free exchange of ideas, but I don't know whether it makes it better or worse. Because a lot of the negative shit can be perpetuated more. And even though now we can counter a lot of it more. But I'm saying, it's like, what was going on when, Alice Walker was dropping The Color Purple and there, like nobody said anything. I know some people said something, but I'm just saying, like, it's like shit like that. Like, shit was already out of hand. I can go and pull up I remember when BGSIB Moore, he had the video clip. They were talking the same shit about feminism and patriarchy and everything, and the video's in black and white. So I'm like, this was already a rising issue back then. This was an issue going all the way back to the Patrick Moynihan report. You know what I mean? And so you talking 60 years of just like inaction, just like nothing's changed. It's just the same. You know what I mean? But you're gonna have organizations that stand up and be like, no, we was on some other shit. It ain't us. We had nothing to do with that. But then they want to be respected as leaders of the community. They want to be respected. They want somebody to come through and give them deference and shit like that. You know who we are? We're the Nation of Islam. We're the fruits of Islam. These young boys don't give a fuck. It don't give a fuck. It's like it's almost like a band or like a group, artist or something that doesn't realize like yo, we don't listen to that anymore. Like, rock and roll is dead in the black community. We don't listen to rock and roll. We listen to drill music. That's what we're listening to right now. Like, they don't even realize like their albums aren't selling anymore. And again, I have not seen, where the torch is. Where's this torch being passed on? The irony is the only person that I've seen take on the gender issue from the Nation of Islam is Shahrazad Ali. She's the only one that's actually, tried to speak, to that issue, that has a face that resonates with all of us, because when I came online, she was relevant. But people act like all this stuff is not a problem, and I'm like, it's a problem. The family unit is the fundamental unit of the community. If your family is fucked up, your community is going to be fucked up. But people want to sit there and be like, no, we gotta go out here and, put in the work. It doesn't matter if our relationship dynamics are messed up. It doesn't matter if the women are thinking and feeling and believing certain. It doesn't matter. Just go out here and do the work and everything. And then again, we come to find out all this, stuff where it's like, no, you just want to rule women. I'm like, what? So you go out there and do the work and have the resources, and it turns into, that's a problem. Sounds like patriarchy to me. It's like, God damn, like, so you don't really want, no, I don't want this. This is not what we wanted. That's nice that you have all your ducks in a row, but I will not subscribe to this, that. It's like, again, and all these religious organizations, all these religious groups, just think about how far, how just off course we are. The black community started in religiosity. We started in Christianity. We started in Islam and all the principles that they put forth and everything else. But none of that matters when you got people still existing and operating in poverty. It's one of the reasons why I say Nation of Islam and Christianity and all that shit, they got the worst recruiting tools ever. Like, I'm like, you got these young boys out here flipping fentanyl, making money with the drill music and everything else, and you're going to try to sell them a broke, dusty, pious lifestyle, especially when dusty has become word of the day. That's the crazy part. I'm like, so let me get this right. So you're going to fix the community by coming through and selling these niggas dust when they got an inferiority complex about being dusty. You know what I'm saying? I mean, listen, you got freaking, what's his name? Little Baby, his song. You know what I'm saying? Like, how's the shit go? Something about, big body Benz, remember when I used to be dusty? I'm like, and you're going to come through and sell religious dust. Religious dust. You know what I mean? Like, people ain't seeing, like, nobody's seeing how any members of the Nation of Islam are living. You know what I mean? How you living? Where's your car? Oh, none of that's important, brother. We got spiritual this and spiritual that. I'm like, okay. I'm like, good luck selling that, to these young boys that are, they think they're clout chasing and trying to get, respect and like, to me, their desire for acknowledgement and respect it's still there. Like, it's still there. Despite them being a savage and everything else, they still want the girls, they still want the cars, they still want the money, they still want that stuff. You know what I mean? Like, again, people want to sit there and they want to talk about all this pious shit. And I'm like, women don't want that pious shit. The woman that you want, the girl that you want, they don't want that. They want the nigga with the whip. They want the nigga with material shit that's going to contribute to having a more comfortable lifestyle. And all the religious people, they always come through and then say, oh, well, that's of the devil. That's of Satan. You should be dusty and pious. Meanwhile, Minister Farrakhan over there in Chicago living in a multi-million-dollar mansion. You know what I mean? The damn house so big it looks like a mosque. Like, fuck out of here, man. Like, and again, and then people want to wonder, y'all want to sit there, you want to say, oh, I'm wrong in what I'm saying. Look around, look at the community. Violence in Chicago through the roof. Violence in New York through the roof. Violence in Philadelphia through the roof. You know what I'm saying? And then not only that, it's all being recorded. You know what I mean? Drive by, shoot, everybody spraying down. I mean, just the shit is just out of control. It's been out of control. It's not like this shit just happened now. No, it was like this in 2010. It was like this. You know what I'm saying? But now, we see it just, COVID exacerbated it. This whole thing with the food shortages and the job markets and, all this shit, the great resignation, it's all fucked up. Like I already said, you had people that were prostrate on the ground who were already in poverty, you know what I mean? And then bam, here comes COVID. Oh, we're going to shut everything down. We're going to shut the economy down. People were already in poverty. Then, like I said, and everybody keeps ignoring it, I'm like, you got a lot of black youth out here who their parents were fucked up and they were living with grandma. And guess what? Grandma is no longer here because grandma caught COVID and died. And so now that young man is left with nothing but dysfunction. He can't go and stay with his father. His father's in jail. He can't go and stay with his mother because his mother's an alcoholic, or his mother is a drug addict like Keisha Cole's mom, or some other bullshit, got other problems. So then he's running around. Oh, maybe he should stay with his aunt. Well, maybe his aunt, she got her own issues to deal with. She can't take the boy in because she's trying to, raise kids herself or whatever. You know what I mean? Like, these kids just fall through the fucking cracks, man. And nobody's really paying attention. All they do is they pay attention when them shots lick out. That's when they pay attention. You know what I'm saying? Like they pay attention when they see the shit pop up on the 6 o'clock news. But like these kids just did not just come out of the void. You know what I mean? And for anybody sitting there saying, oh, it's because they don't have this holy book, or they don't have the sweet twinkle of Christ, or the sweet warmth of Allah in their bosom, y'all niggas ain't paying attention, man. Y'all too magical to actually be problem solvers. I'm like, you're not going to fix any of this shit without putting, I'm going to be very specific about it. You're not fixing any of this shit without putting black men back to work. Period. It cannot be done. If you do not have gainful employment for young black men, and the hope of future generations of young black men to look up to being able to have access to the economic opportunity, what you see in the black community now will continue, and it will perpetuate. So, y'all can take it however you want to take it. But you asking me about the effectiveness of these organizations, Detroit 300, Nation of Islam, Looking Out Your Third Eye organization, whatever organization you want to throw up. I'm like, one, we need the economic opportunities. Somebody's, industry something, which aren't there. And again, I don't know what can be done. That's why I always encourage these young men to go out here and, don't write rhymes, write code. Because that's where everything is going. Y'all should be making apps. You should be talking about, oh, I'm making money on TikTok. We should have had a TikTok. We should have created our own TikTok or own social media. And then what's the other thing? With the issue again, the whole respect for the whole that shit is gone. But there was another issue about the economic opportunities, and there was another thing I was gonna say. I just lost my train of thought. Hold on a second. Getting all type of messages. Oh, yeah, and that whole point about having a real enforcement arm. And like I said, I don't know how it would be. I don't know how anybody would go about doing things, but men do have to be put in check. That is a fact. Young men will always think that they're invincible. They will always think that They can do it better than the older generation, and they have to be made to recognize that they cannot. They have to be made to recognize that they don't have the power. They have to eat off of you. They have to get opportunities from you. They have to need you. It's like black men kind of get it twisted where, we get stupid like the women and start running around believing in intrinsic respect. Just like women run around with their, that they're intrinsically valuable to men simply because they have a womb. And we know that that's not the case because it's like, if she's not beautiful to us or beautiful to a man, no, she's not as equally as valuable as a more beautiful woman. That's just not how it works. And so all that old school black people stuff, I brought you here, like that's not gonna hold water. I brought you into this world and I'm gonna take you out. Yeah, that worked, back in the day on some Marvin Gaye type shit. Yeah, that worked back then. You know what I mean? When Marvin Gaye's dad had the revolver, you know what I'm saying? But nah, like now, these young boys got extendos. You know what I'm saying? They got, all they gotta do is go and get one of these, build kits, and slap a Glock together. Slap a P80 together, which I was gonna make a video about these kits, because if you're not a prohibited person, I believe that people should be able to make their own firearms. But even I have to admit, I'm like, it is a little bit too easy to go out there and make, these kits. It's just a little bit too easy. Cause I've already contemplated in my head. I'm like, it's illegal to do that shit in like the blue states, the liberal states. It's illegal to do it. But I'm sitting there. I'm like, but if I really wanted to do it, I could easily do it. I could easily break the law and go and do it. You see what I'm saying? So, again, technology. When the technology advances, there'll be when we all have Millennium Falcons, they'll be like, you can't go, faster than the speed of light. We clocked you at warp 5. You know what I mean? Like once technology gets to a certain point, I don't know how you police certain shit. They'll just have to make more laws and more laws, which is what the liberals are trying to do. But again, criminals are going to do what they want to do. It's the whole thing is all around just a different period in time. And I don't feel like a lot of these so-called well-respected black organizations, respect or recognize that. And I know this because I have dealt with organizations in the city of Philadelphia, that, all these, these sort of, politically appointed, these people, friends of friends and people getting all the hookup and everything else like that. And, it's like their whole, like they really think they're doing something. And they have no clue how they're like, I'm like, you're like 4 generations away from the young men that you're trying to, trying to steer in a particular direction. And they come with like just old lines that just don't resonate anymore. They just don't resonate with young black men. They don't know how to communicate with them. I've witnessed it firsthand. And the funny thing is they tried to make me, be the segue. But you know why I got in trouble with trying to be the segue? Because I'm too much of a truth teller. You know what I mean? They want you to, you're closer to you're closer to their age, so you should be able to communicate with them and get them to understand our message. But I'm sitting there, I'm like, but your message is bullshit. You know what I'm saying? Like your message is bullshit. I'm like, we was Kangs. And I'm sitting there and I got young kids asking me, okay, well, if we were so great, 5,000 years ago, why aren't we great today? See? I'm like, but you ain't got no answers for that. You see, it was a mess. Their whole way of trying to facilitate these sort of ideas it was a mess. It was a legit mess, and because it's like I'm dealing with, let me say this, and I'm going to end this video off. One of the biggest issues, and I touched on this before in this video, because I'm just doing this off the cuff, but it's the fact that a lot of these older black men and women included, I'm talking about the ones that are like, heading in, they're either in retirement, usually they're in retirement or heading towards retirement and stuff like that. They grew up in an environment where they actually saw functioning black families, at a critical mass. They saw functioning black families. They saw functioning communities, right? They saw, a general sense of order. This is why the civil rights movement was able to happen the way that it did. Because all black people were disenfranchised back then. All of them felt the impact of white supremacy, right? But now it's a lot more fractured. You got the bougie niggas and, the field niggas and, the ones that don't want to, not have, and then not only that, there's a whole hustle when it comes to, help the youth. Like you saw the video clip that I just posted, right? The one dressed in Paris Milan and the brother, touching her and stroking her and whatnot, which she went off about. But if you listen carefully in that clip, that brother was like, yeah, 347, right? Trying to get the number. And then what did he say? He was like, yeah, I'm over here. That was bullshit. He made that whole shit up. I'm trying to help the youth and da-da-da-da-da, trying to pull on some heartstrings. Man, let me tell you, there are tons of old black men that operate on that hustle, that operate on the I'm helping the youth hustle. And when it ultimately comes down to it, they be skimming off of the top. Whatever funding they're getting, community funding, federal funding, whatever they're getting, they're skimming that bitch off the top. And then they going off and funding their own personal lavish lifestyles. Okay? So, it's like, people rail into this with Umar Johnson. They be ripping into Umar Johnson about that shit. Like, where's our school, nigga? Where's our school? Please, man. So, there is a, we're going to help the youth hustle, to try to be the spokesperson, the face of, I'm fixing it, but I will be paying myself in the process of fixing it. And don't get me wrong, nobody can do it for free. I'm not asking anybody to go out there, and be a monk, but I'm just pointing out that, there is a hustle component to, help black boys, but not really help black boys. There's a hustle component to it. And that doesn't get called out enough. And that's why when I saw that clip, I was like, man, I know that talking point. Yeah, 347, yeah, I'm out here trying to help the youth. So, if you want to, help me help the youth, you know what I'm saying, sister? Fist in the air, right? And that whole time, all that dude's trying to do is slide in some gushy, Like I told you, a lot of the members of the Nation of Islam that I've come across, felons, got kids spread all over the planet and stuff like that. Again, different generation. I don't know what this new generation is on, but I'm saying if they're the children of that generation, then I'm like, then you got the same problem as educated lames who are not a part of the Nation of Islam. You're not going to be able to go in and send in your troops of men that never been through some shit, a bunch of ELs with bow ties. You're not going to be able to send them in there to go deal with, dudes that are in the streets. You would have to recruit from the streets to handle the streets. So you would have to recruit from these prisons and then get them into the fruits of Islam. Now, I'm not saying that they don't have that. They don't have any of that. But you got a lot of members that are a part of the Nation of Islam now that are generational members of the Nation of Islam. And that's completely different than that original, recruitment of the first wave, back when, Malcolm X was alive and stuff like that. Brothers had already been beat over the head and jammed up by the system. And, Nation of Islam gave them a sense of identity and a sense of purpose and a sense of belonging. But when you have young men that are raised in that generation, it's a different animal. That now you start getting into some ELs. Now you start getting into guys that grew up a little bit more comfortably, had structure in there. They don't have that type of anger. That's another thing. That was another thing I was going to touch on. Having that type of anger. You know what I mean? When you got guys out here that got fucked up parents. You know what I mean? I knew a kid that was sleeping. He was like sleeping in like some, I don't know what it was. It was like a homeless shelter. I'm like, how do you have a kid in a homeless shelter? But the whole situation was he didn't want to go home and he was coming into class. The whole issue was the teacher told me he was coming into class and he was tired and he smelled bad and the other kids were ragging on him because he smelled bad. The story turned out that the reason why he smelled bad and the reason why he was so tired is because we don't know where he went to go sleep. He went to some facility or some homeless shelter or something and was trying to sleep, which I don't even know how you could sleep as a child in there with grown ass people around. But I think they knew something, so they made accommodations or some shit for him. But anyway, his mother was prostituting herself in the house when he would come back from school. So he didn't want to hear his mom's head hitting the fucking the bedboard. And so, he would, just basically disappear, not be there. You know what I mean? But then he would be up all night and then he'd be sleeping in school and then he didn't take a shower because where's he going to take a shower at? So he was stinking and the kids were clowning him. And so, he had a lot of shit going on. But to send in a group of men that grew up relatively comfortable, don't have that type of anger, and maybe that anger comes when, you got kids and you trying to raise them in a proper environment and you got other people out there that are just basically terrorizing the community. Yeah, that'll have you with a whole bunch of anger and shit like that. One of the father's children in the neighborhood get killed or something. That'll draw some anger out of you. But I'm saying in terms of the guys that haven't gone through anything, it's like what you see with boxers. When you get, the boxers, why the Mexican boxers are so good? Because that's their ticket out of poverty. Anytime you get a boxer that comes out of poverty, he's always going to be better than the kid that was like, oh, I want to go into boxing and I want to. He's not hungry like that. So you don't put a domesticated dog in the ring with, starving wolves. If I can put it a certain way, if I can use an analogy, you don't put them in the same space. The domesticated dog is going to get gobbled up, in my opinion. Unless he has, superior equipment and superior capabilities and superior organization and superior tactics. But like I said, I don't see any black organization coming with that. We are the most talkingest people ever, man. We love to talk. We love to talk. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, like I always say, it comes down to fuck are you gonna do about it? That's the phrase. Fuck are you gonna do about it? Yeah, I hear you talking, yada yada yada. Fuck are you gonna do about it? I'm on the block, nigga. I'm selling. I'm shooting. I'm busting. You come around here, I'm busting you. All that. Okay, fuck are you gonna do about it? See, when somebody's operating like that, in other words, there's no way around that. You're gonna have to crack some eggs. And when it comes to black men, just cross the board. You know what I mean? I don't really see anybody who is even remotely comfortable, willing to sacrifice what they got going on to go in there and crack some eggs so we can have a better community. All we've had over the last couple generations or so are the people who can leave. They leave and they go somewhere else and they say, well, I'm not around it. I'm over here living in this white community, so I don't have to do anything about it. So that's not my problem. And so you end up with this environment that's a cesspool. It's a brain drain. All the people that are the most capable leave. You go back to, the 60s and the 50s. If you were a black doctor, you were living in the neighborhood. If you were a black lawyer, you were living in the neighborhood. You know what I mean? If you were, a tradesman, or if you had, some other type of, you were in the neighborhood. The white, you had all those housing covenants and all that shit. Black people couldn't live where the white people lived. But once desegregation took place, and then you had the, families like the Myers, I want to live in Levittown, Pennsylvania. Once you have families like the Myers, and every black person that could left. And then what you end up with is you end up with a community where you have, the people that are, arguably, lower IQ, or just generally, maybe their parents aren't, the upperly mobile ones that can move out. And then you end up with, this environment where, people are not getting, different perspectives. This is what you see with a lot of the new mixed low income housing. They try to mix it up. It's one of the reasons they do that, because the white folks figured out a while ago that if you take all the poor folks, that have limited capacity, and I'm saying maybe some of those kids have a greater capacity than their parents. A lot of times the apple doesn't fall far from the tree, but sometimes you get a rose that grows out of concrete. But if they don't get certain, access to different ideas and ways of thinking, chances are they're just going to continue this cycle in that situation. So they created this whole mixed housing situation so that they have access to kids who have better educated parents and more resources and stuff like that, so that they're exposed more, and so that they feel, okay, it is possible, let me go out here and do that. You see? So for the black community, it's like, look, I know because my parents did it. They, lead pipe. The house got ransacked twice. This is when my parents, were, living in Philly. House got ransacked twice. They came in and they didn't steal anything. They just literally came in and they knocked everything over, turned all the furniture over, threw the TV on the ground, took a bat to the TV, just because, just a bunch of teens, just, doing dumb shit like you see today. And then there was a fight in front of the house, and my mother said that a lead pipe came flying through the window, and my mother was like, that's it, we're done here. And then, there was me, and raised in the burbs, and the rest, right? But it's like, if nobody is going to stand up to the savagery that's taking place in the community, like there's nothing to be said. You're not going to be able to lecture people from afar in an environment you're not even living in. I had that, again, another issue I had with some of the black leaders in Philadelphia. Motherfuckers had the audacity to tell me that you don't have to live there in order to fix the community. I'm like, show me a Chinatown with no Chinese leaders in it. Show me a Jewish community with no Jewish leaders in it. Like, fuck, what are you talking about? You know what I mean? Like, they just want to come down like Superman every time and time again. Look at me, kids. Get a good look. Get a good look. Yes. Be inspired by my presence. As Jay-Z said, my presence is charity. Okay, kids, time for me to go. Up, and away. Right? Like, that's literally the black leaders of Philadelphia. They're not living where the shit is going down. No. Which also highlights and demonstrates just how ineffective they are and how weak they are. in terms of, going out here and having an enforcement arm. And check, these young boys know that y'all don't have an enforcement arm. Go, if you doubt me, okay, go run over to one of the, go into Chicago, since, Farrakhan's house is in Chicago. Go over there and ask one of these drill music, go ask the shooters of FBG Duck. Go ask them if they know what the fruits of Islam are. Just be like, you know what the fruits of Islam are? They'll be like, what is that? It's like a underwear company? It's like Fruit of the Loom? Like, what is that? They're not gonna know. They are not gonna know. Oh, yo, you mean them old ass niggas in them black and white films? Yeah, that's what you mean with the Mickey Mouse gloves. Oh yeah. I think I seen them. I seen something like that on the internet and shit. These motherfuckers ain't taking history. You already know we not learning that in school. Nobody's learning about. They barely learn about slavery and Jim Crow. It's like, yes. And slavery happened, and Abraham Lincoln gave the declaration, was it the Emancipation Proclamation, and then there was evil Jim Crow and a bunch of Klan people that rode around, and America said that was bad, and then Martin Luther King gave a I Have a Dream speech, and then racism was over. They don't teach you about Malcolm X in school. They don't teach you about freaking Marcus Garvey in school. They don't teach you about the Nation of Islam or the Black Panthers or Huey P. Newton. No, Fred Hampton. Who the fuck is that? I didn't know who Fred Hampton was until I was grown. They teach you about that. They teach you Frederick Douglass. You might get some Marcus Garvey, because black people will mention Marcus Garvey, and they'll mention Martin Luther King. Because Martin Luther King was, he was Professor Xavier. He was like, no, we must get along with the humans. You know what I'm saying? Malcolm X was on some Magneto shit. They don't want Magneto. No. You know what I mean? Talking about shooting two-legged dogs and stuff like, oh no, we can't. We're not going to promote that. So, I mean, this is where we are, people. And a lot of black folks don't want to have, I don't care what organization you're a part of, they don't want to have an honest conversation about what is really at stake here. They don't want to have an honest conversation about what it would actually take. They don't want to have an honest conversation about the fact that, if you're talking about fixing the shit, like, you will be at war with other black men in the community. If you think like Ray Ray and Pookie's just going to wake up and go, oh, and then just put the guns down and recognize based off of some, spirituality or some hotep, you got another thought coming. You know what I mean? That street culture is firmly entrenched via the music and the gangster rap. I mean, it's like a 30-year run. Gangster rap has had a 30-year run. You know what I'm saying? That's 1/3 of a freaking of a century. That's not something that can easily be removed with simply the wave of a hand or the wave of a gesture. But yet, this is how people talk. If we just get our minds right. I'm like, yeah, that sounds like I don't have the resources to do what's done. That, to me, it's the equivalent of the way that you'll have broke dudes trying to get women to fall in line by reading scripture and talking about how the man should be the head of the household despite not having the resources to be. That's literally what we do with, crime and poverty in the black community and whatnot. Like we try to get men to, somehow fall in line without having an enforcement arm and without having, the resources and the economics that they need to survive so that they can be those men that all these holy books say that they need to be. They got to be in the position. I don't understand this whole concept of, well, it's not about money and resources. And see, brother, that's the problem of your materialism and everything else like that. Even the damn Quran says that you can't take on more than one wife if you can't provide for them. So don't tell me it's not about the resources. It is about a value amount. So, I just, there's not a whole bunch of common sense. You know what I mean? Motherfuckers be sitting there listening to this video, silently agreeing with me. They know what I'm talking about. You know what I mean? But publicly, it's an argument. It's an argument. They're gonna, well, I'm a part of this organization, so I'm not gonna act like you making any sense. I don't agree with you. You know what I mean? Like, or they'll try to claim, well, see, brother, in 1975, a speech was given that covered everything that you saying. They're gonna try to take credit for some shit, just make some shit up. Like I said, it's different times. People need to. That's one of the things that black people are the absolute worst at. Adaptation. We like the absolute worst at adaptation when it comes to these like major complex things that we face as a people. Yeah, we're just late to the party on everything. So anyway, that's all I gotta say. That is my video commentary on why I think organizations like the Nation of Islam and Detroit 300 and whatever other organizations you want to name, why it's not as effective as it once was. And I think that it's a point that definitely needs to be brought up, because I'm just saying, if you were trying to find a way to make it effective, if I don't toss it all in the recycling bin, the points that I brought up in this video are points that would have to be addressed. And nobody really wants to dive deep into that. So, anyway, that's my video. SWP out.
It don't make no sense. They was just shooting down here last night. We living in some very dark times here.
Neighbors are fed up.
The mayor going to have to step up. If something has to be done, we need help. Prayer is not getting it. We done did all of that. It's getting worse. The kids can't come out and play. We scared to go to the store. You can't sit on your porch. And we never lived like this.